Have you ever heard of a divorce petition being filed without consent? I thought it was something that would never concern me, even if it happened. I divorced the sick, penniless person. It was not until I received such an email while hospitalized due to the stress of my husband's affair that I decided to get a divorce as I wanted, and soon after my discharge, I went straight to the bank with everything I had. I wanted to make my ex-husband, an elite banker who had cheated, pay for what he had done. My name is Candace. I am a handmade artist, and it's been 6 years since I married my husband Fred. We used to get along well, as he was a colleague at the bank, but lately, our relationship had deteriorated. About 6 months ago, Fred started coming home late and became glued to his phone at home. He used to talk on the phone in the room, but now he often goes out to the car to talk. Suspecting an affair, I agonized over it and finally hired a detective agency to investigate. It cost a bit of money, but I was fine if it turned out to be a misunderstanding. I thought of it as a peace of mind payment. A month after requesting the investigation, it became clear that Fred was having an affair. His affair partner was a woman named Mandy, a girl at the same bank's counter. According to the report, she knew he was married and kept approaching him. There were several photos in the report, including the two entering a hotel, kissing on the street, and enjoying a meal together. I couldn't give up on Fred. I believed it was just a fling for Fred. He would surely come back to me. I wanted to believe that and tried to be an even better wife than usual. I changed my hairstyle, put on makeup, put extra effort into cooking, and kept a smile on my face. But none of it was noticed or touched. The days when he didn't touch his food increased, and I was mentally cornered day by day. I had been thinking about not confronting him about such matters, but seeing Fred cheerfully leaving the house with his phone in hand every day, I couldn't hold back anymore. You seem busy lately. You get a lot of phone calls. Do you have so much work that you have to deal with it even after you come home? Yeah. You married me about 2 years after you started working at the bank, right? You wouldn't understand because you haven't been there, but it's a busy period right now. You have it easy, right? You're a handmade artist with no busy periods and no earnings. Saying that, Fred laughed at me as if mocking me. I was shocked by such an attitude from Fred. Fred used to never say such things about my work, nor did he laugh it off. He always praised the items I made and supported me even when I worked into the night. You don't have to say it like that. I might not be as busy as Fred, but I take my job seriously. I'm not doing it carelessly. I don't know how much you're earning, Candace, but it's definitely less than me, right? I'm paying half of the rent, utilities, and living expenses, so that's how you can live. It's tough for a woman with no earning power. You couldn't live if I divorced you. What kind of way is that to talk? I make enough to pay half. But right now, that doesn't matter. What? Do you want to divorce me, Fred? I couldn't control myself after hearing the word divorce from Fred. Tears started flowing and couldn't be stopped. Fred sighed as he saw me crying and said annoyingly, "Don't cry at your age," and left the living room. From the next day, Fred became even colder towards me. He completely ignored me when I tried to talk to him. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. Even in such a situation, I kept wondering how we could go back to being a happy couple as before. It put a lot of stress on my mind and body, and there were times when I would just start crying out of the blue. I hadn't talked to anyone about my situation with Fred, but I couldn't handle it alone anymore. I decided to meet with my best friend since high school, Stacy, who is a successful career woman, to get some advice. I hadn't been able to tell anyone about my feelings, and I poured them out to Stacy with tears. Fred is completely infatuated with this woman named Mandy. He's coming home later and later. What should I do? Do you still love your husband, Candace? Do you want to get along with him like before? When Stacy asked me this, I honestly expressed my feelings. It sounds silly, but I still love him. I don't want to give up, but honestly, it's been really tough. It was then that I suddenly started coughing violently and bent forward. I have had asthma since before, and it worsened while I was stressed about my relationship with Fred. I tried to use my inhaler, but I couldn't breathe it in because of the coughing. The coughing wouldn't stop, and it became unbearable. I couldn't even sit and collapsed on the floor. Candace. Are you okay? Stay with me. Excuse me, someone. Please call an ambulance. Stacy was desperately calling out to me, but I couldn't respond. I lost consciousness. When I woke up next, I was lying in a hospital bed. Candace. Thank goodness. You're awake. Are you okay? Do you understand? I saw Stacy with tears in her eyes. I tried to speak cautiously, and although I coughed, I managed to say sorry. Stacy nodded while crying and quickly called the nurse using the nurse call button. Then, the doctor came and explained that my asthma symptoms were severe and I would need to stay in the hospital for about a week. I had nothing for a sudden hospital stay. Stacy bought a hospital set sold at the shop and filled out the admission consent form and other documents. I tried to call my husband to inform him of my hospitalization, but I couldn't talk. Stacy called my husband's mobile, but he did not answer. I thought about contacting his workplace, but fearing I might be scolded, I couldn't muster the courage. Eventually, Stacy wrote an email for me and sent it. Stacy stayed until the end of visiting hours and then left. After that, I kept waking up and falling asleep due to the medication. I kept checking for any messages from Fred, but the first one arrived at 1 o'clock in the middle of the night. If you're hospitalized, there's nothing I can do. I'm busy with work, so I won't visit. I was truly sad and miserable after reading that email. It wasn't that he couldn't come because of work, he said he wouldn't come, which showed me he no longer loved me. I thought I shouldn't cry, but tears came uncontrollably. I didn't reply to the email and cried until morning. 2 days passed. Fred hadn't visited, but Stacy frequently stopped by after work. Good. You look a bit better. Are you able to eat? I brought your favorite novel. Stacy came in cheerfully and talked with a smile. I couldn't be more grateful. Thank you. I'm feeling quite good today. My cough has calmed down a lot. The doctor said he'd consider discharging me in about 2 more days. Stacy was very happy and made plans to go out and eat healthy food once I was discharged. While discussing where to go with Stacy, my phone beeped with a notification. I divorced the sick, penniless person. I received such a message from Fred. No matter how many times I read it, I couldn't understand its meaning, and I froze with my phone in hand. My heart was pounding, and my mind was in chaos. You hardly earn anything, right? You don't do serious work yet fall sick, which is laughable. Wife gotcha, big failure. So, I've submitted the divorce papers. Take care. After reading the continuing texts, I unconsciously laughed. It felt like a farce. To have an asthma attack and be hospitalized, and then to be divorced by Fred during this time. At the same time, tears flowed, and I started crying and laughing. Seeing my condition, Stacy was quite panicked and shook my shoulder. What? Candace, what's going on? Are you okay? Hey. Hey. In my confusion, I handed my phone to Stacy to show her the emails from Fred. Stacy's face turned red with anger as she read the message. Hey, Candace. I knew you still loved your husband, so I didn't say anything, but maybe it's time to let go? I understood what Stacy wanted to say. Although she started crying out of heightened emotions, she managed to express herself clearly. Just get a divorce, Candace. Take care of yourself. Even if you love him, sorry for being harsh, but you can't be happy with such a shitty man. Stacy apologized, knowing that it's not usually her place to interfere in marital affairs. In turn, I apologized to her. It's okay, really. I knew it already. I just couldn't admit it. I lacked the courage to get a divorce and kept looking away. But now, I can't do it anymore. I'll divorce Fred. When the topic of divorce first came up, I was scared of the separation. I still loved Fred, and I was afraid of how others would react when we divorced. But once I decided for myself, the fear of getting divorced strangely disappeared. I truly felt ready to give up. That's the way to go. Let's do it. Once you're single again, we can enjoy all sorts of things together. Yes. I really feel relieved. Thank you, Stacy. I'm really glad you're here. You're my dear friend, Candace, it's only natural. Wait, but how could he file the divorce? Where's your signature? Stacy's expression turned to anger again as I explained. When we got married, we both signed a divorce petition in advance. It sounds silly, but we agreed to use it only if we couldn't resolve our issues through discussion and to overcome any crisis as a couple. Well, we couldn't even have a discussion, right? I could laugh about it, but Stacy didn't find it funny and sighed in disbelief. I see. So he just pulled that out and filled in his part and submitted it. It might not be forgery, but I'm still appalled. I was worried about getting divorced in such a state with Fred, so I hid it in the room. Maybe he found it and submitted it with his signature? Now, I'm genuinely relieved he did it. I couldn't decide to divorce Fred because I still loved him, but now it's different. Just as he no longer has feelings for me, neither do I. I'm not foolish enough to stay in love after being treated this way. Since then, one-sided communications from Fred have continued. Since you probably have no assets, I'm not splitting my money with you. The house is in my name, so leave. I'm being kind by waiting until the end of the month. I don't want to bump into you, so I won't return until after the end of the month. Make sure you clean the room before you go. Honestly, what is this guy thinking? His utter selfishness made me laugh again. Laughing, I showed the email to Stacy. Look, Stacy. I've lost the house. What should I do? Going back to my parents' place is too far. I had no intention of staying in that house, and I had important handmade parts there. If I were to move them, they would probably fill an entire room. The right size, security, rent. Can I find a property that fits all these criteria easily? As I pondered this, Stacy laughed. Have you forgotten where your best friend works? Ma'am, leave it to me. I'll find the perfect room for you. Sorry, I really forgot. That's right. Stacy, please take care of it. I thanked Stacy. Her job is in real estate. Finding rooms is her expertise, she's a pro among pros. I decided to leave everything to this capable woman. From then on, until the day of my discharge, Stacy brought loads of property listings to my hospital bed and spread them out to explain. As a result, we were able to find a property close to my desires, which was a relief. Since some documents could only be sorted out after my discharge, I decided to stay at Stacy's place for the time being. I'm really sorry for causing you so much trouble. It's okay. I have good sales at work? I've been second in charge at the store for a while. Sorry, but rental contracts have a lot of paperwork and require checks, so it might take some time. Until everything is settled, you can stay at my place as long as you like. Thank you so much. I'll do whatever I can to help. Let's build up your strength gradually. How have things been since then? Any contact from your ex-husband? No, not a peep. Well, he's a stranger now. I do hear from people from our bank days though. Apparently, I was a terrible wife. That's right. It seems my ex-husband announced our divorce at work and blamed me for the reasons. Not doing household chores, not contributing financially to the house, but spending on my hobbies. Whenever we tried to discuss, He said I'd just get hysterical and was impossible to deal with. At this point, it's almost laughable. Who is he to talk? Makes me want to shout at him that he was the one cheating. It seems Stacy has reached a point where she can only laugh. So? You're not planning to let this end here, are you? Candace, what will you do? Grinning mischievously, I laughed back. There was no way I was going to let it end like this. He had his fun, but now it's my turn. Of course. I won't hold back against a man with no sincerity and a woman who messes with a married man. I have a few plans, so look forward to it. Wait and see, both of you. Enjoy your calm married life for now. I had already begun moving towards my revenge. 2 days later, when I was discharged from the hospital, Stacy drove me straight to the bank where my ex-husband Fred and his new wife Mandy were. Entering the bank, I saw Fred in the back. It had been a while since I saw his face. About a month and a half had passed since I was hospitalized and he filed for divorce. Seeing Fred, I thought I would be furious. But that feeling didn't come. Instead, I looked for Mandy, whom I had seen in photos. There she was, sitting at her counter, looking composed after having taken someone else's husband. I took a number and waited for my turn. Fortunately, I was called to Mandy's counter. She greeted me with a "Welcome." "Hello. I'm sorry, but I would like to close a bank account." "Certainly. You wish to close an account, is that correct? Is it just one account? Here it comes." I spoke with a deep breath. "No. I want to close the accounts for all 800 employees of my company." The statement caused a stir behind the counter. I glanced at Fred, who looked shocked. He seemed like he wanted to say something, his mouth opening and closing. All 800 accounts? Mandy looked panicked at the counter, and I couldn't help but laugh. Closing the salary accounts of 800 people is a big disadvantage for the bank. It's not just about losing deposits. With interest rates being low, the bank counts on making money from transfer fees and payroll processing fees. Losing that is a big deal. Yes, all of them. Please proceed. While presenting the corporate account passbooks, I spoke. What are you doing? Hey, did you just say something? A company? 800 employees? What are you talking about? Fred came over to the counter. His approach confused the other customers in the bank. "Oh, long time no see. Been well?" "Just what I said. I'm the president of a company. I've been the president even when we were married. It's a handicraft-related company, so I'm both an artist and a president." I told the truth right there at the counter. "You're the president? What? I don't know about this. You never said that when we were married, right?" "Yes, I didn't say. You used to mock me as a failing handmade artist, right?" "I didn't tell you because I thought it would hurt your high pride, even though I earn more than you." Mandy, who evidently didn't know my face, looked shocked. She murmured in a low voice, "Is this the person?" "Hello. I am this man's ex-wife. Please proceed with the cancellation quickly." Fred and Mandy were frozen, caught off guard by the situation. That's when someone called out to me. "Candace. It's been a while, you look well." There stood Mr. Manning, my boss until I married Fred. He was a tough person, and many of my peers found him difficult, but I liked him. He was strict with others, but also strict with himself. When I married Fred, he told me tearfully to be happy. "Mr. Manning. It's been a long time. You look well too." For a moment, I forgot why I was there, just happy to see Mr. Manning. "Yes, I'm well. I've been worried about you since he told me. It sounds like a lot has happened. While we wait for the procedures, how about we talk in the back room?" "Of course, these two and I will be there." Mr. Manning glanced sharply at Fred and Mandy. The report from Fred must have been about our divorce and his remarriage to Mandy. The faces of the two, which had been red a moment ago, were now pale. From red to blue, they must be having a busy time. I don't mind. I'd love to catch up with Mr. Manning. Good. Let's go to the reception room on the 3rd floor. You two, come along right away. We headed to the 3rd floor where the guest reception room was located. Mr. Manning opened the door for us, and I thanked him as we entered and sat down. It really has been a long time, Mr. Manning. I'm sorry to meet under these circumstances. I apologized, and Mr. Manning smiled back. No worries. I was surprised by how we reunited, but I'm glad to see you're doing well. I was shocked when he told me about the divorce. And that he remarried so quickly. Mr. Manning glanced at Mandy and added. And he claimed the divorce was your fault, which I don't believe. Wait a minute, Mr. Manning. Are you implying that we are to blame? Is that not the case? If it's different, I'll apologize. But, you know, I taught her at work for years. She was always organized, the best at cleaning. Didn't she always bring a homemade lunch? Yes. I responded, surprised that Mr. Manning remembered such details from years ago. It felt good to be acknowledged for my efforts. He's been spreading that the divorce was due to you not doing household chores and not contributing financially but spending on your hobbies. And that any attempt to discuss would end in your hysterical outbursts. But Candace is not that kind of person. Mr. Manning's firm words made me feel like tearing up, relieved that someone understood me. That's the truth. Mr. Manning only knows her from a work perspective. You may suspect we had an inappropriate relationship, but that's not true. Yes, that's right. There was no affair. I just couldn't stand to see Fred so down after his divorce, and while I was cheering him up, he proposed to me. The two of them piled up such lies in front of Mr. Manning, with Mandy passionately defending herself as if she were a tragic heroine. Ridiculous. I was the one who was hurt. I pulled out a document from my bag, about the thickness of a notebook. Would you like to see, Mr. Manning? This is all the evidence of their inappropriate relationship. You two can look too. Oh, maybe you don't need to? You must be familiar with it. I handed Mr. Manning the report I had gotten from the detective agency. Mr. Manning easily avoided Mandy's attempt to snatch it as she screamed. Sit down and be quiet. Mandy shrieked and clung to Fred. What is this? You said she was so stupid she wouldn't notice anything. You told me a different story. Mandy, it's not like that. She's really stupid. I didn't think she'd do something like this. You talk too much nonsense about others. I was about to complain when Mr. Manning exploded with anger. The real fools are you two. You, Fred, who cheats despite having a wife, and you, Mandy, who approaches a married man, you both are complete fools. Playing the victim, are you? You two are the offenders, and Candace is the victim. Thank you for saying everything I wanted to say. It feels refreshing. But may I add something? Of course. Speak your mind. I won't stop you. I was truly grateful for how angrily Mr. Manning was defending me. He nodded strongly at me and started reading the report with great intensity. His furrowed brow was something else. You called me stupid, but do you think a stupid person can run a company? It turns out the one with the lesser income was you, wasn't it? How much was your salary again? $100,000. That's plenty. Fred seemed very proud of his salary of $100,000. Mandy nodded along, looking oddly proud as well. Is that so? Well, maybe that's enough. I make $400,000, though. I employ 800 people, and it's been 4 years since I started the company. I started this company with my friends, working in the very handicrafts field you ridiculed. $400,000. Fred and Mandy's faces turned comical. The fact that the person they ridiculed was actually a president making $400,000 was too much information for them. Yes. It's getting busy, so I plan to hire more employees. I had chosen this bank for employee accounts thinking of you, but I don't need to bother anymore. So, I'm going to cancel them all. Wait. Just wait a minute. If you cancel them, the bank's deposits decrease, and having salary accounts helps with things like housing mortgage applications. It's a big loss for the bank if you cancel. It seems he forgot that I used to work at a bank. The knowledge I have as a former bank employee, why is he acting like it's something so impressive? Yes, I know. It's basic knowledge for a bank employee. Are you belittling me? Why should I care about an ex-husband who filed for divorce while I was hospitalized with asthma due to stress from his infidelity? And these two are forgetting something important. I pointed it out to them. Besides, you cheated within the bank, didn't you? You really think you can continue down your elite path unscathed? And you too, by the way. Looking at Mandy, she had already started crying. Fred looked down, frustrated, then suddenly prostrated himself. Please. I'm sorry, forgive me. It was just a fling. A fling, you understand? She was pushing me, and, well, I just went along with it. Mandy screamed at this. What do you mean by that? Are you saying it's my fault? You were the one who said there was no love in your marriage, that it wasn't working out. Mandy was shaking Fred, clinging to him. A cheap soap opera scene suddenly started, and I couldn't help but laugh. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Aren't you foolish? What value does such a prostration have? You are worthless. Mr. Manning then spoke, his voice filled with disdain. Right. Now that we've seen the irrefutable evidence, let's proceed with the appropriate punishment. Your affair caused the bank to suffer a large number of account cancellations. You seem well aware of the disadvantages of account cancellations, so I assume you have no objections to the punishment? Mr. Manning asked this, and Fred nodded meekly while Mandy cried out loud. I wish they would stop playing the victims till the end. I left the punishment to Mr. Manning and exited the room. By the time we finished talking, the account cancellations were completed, and I left the bank feeling refreshed. Later, I received a call from Mr. Manning informing me that the two were dismissed for disciplinary reasons. This time, Fred's affair resulted in a significant loss of accounts, and the bank judged the impact to be severe. The two of them, now unemployed, are reportedly struggling to find work. Unable to pay their mortgage, they were kicked out of their apartment and have been turned down by friends when asking for money. Fred has been calling and emailing me, suggesting we get back together since he's divorcing Mandy, but I ignore all of it. The laughable emails are forwarded to Stacy, and we laugh about them together. I also made sure to claim compensation through a lawyer. Fred argued to his lawyer that the assets of the company I started after our marriage should be divided as marital property, but unfortunately for him, the assets in the company's name are not subject to property division. I thought divorce would be hard, but working hard post-divorce makes me feel happy. I think I should have divorced sooner, which is curious. I have plenty of money to spend freely and no complaints. From now on, I plan to live valuing myself more.